Good evening, everybody. This is actually the part 2 of the first verse in Bamidbar, Numbers chapter 1, verse 1. We mentioned the second part of the verse, which we will discuss tonight, okay? Be'echad chodesh hasheni b'shana hashenit. The first day of the second month of the second year of their leaving Egypt, this census was taken. So the Kli Yakar begins by telling us a Midrash, but he doesn't really discuss in detail so much, but as we go through it, you'll see that it becomes more relevant and it's kind of dissected and understood as we go along. So we start. Tzorach zman zeh shekatuv kan. Right? All of a sudden we have a date. It's the first date. It's the first day of the second month of Iyar. Okay, the first day of the month of Iyar, which is the second month in the second year. This date is necessary to have been written in the verse. Amru b'medrash tanchuma. It's written in the medrash. Mashal v'melech. There's an analogy to a king. Shenasa isha. He happened to marry a woman. V'lo chatav la k'tubah. He had not written to her a marriage contract. We don't have the whole medrash here, but he's quoting the important parts. L'yami matza aniyah bat tovim, and later on he found a poor woman of good quality, l'katav la ketubah, and he did marry her, and he wrote to her this marriage contract. And what was the most important thing at this point was l'katav lazman. He wrote in there a time for the marriage that was consummated. Okay, so we will see this play itself out through his explanation of this verse, because our verse tells us about a date. Ayin nosach hamedrash b'yilchud. He wants you to check out the text, the actual words in the medrash, and he says, according to the author of this medrash, Dat Bal Medrashu, Sheyom Matan Torahu Yom Erusin, that the very day that we received the Torah, it's Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, the receiving of the Torah, that we call it the revelation, that was the betrothal. That was when Am Yisrael, the people of Israel, the nation of Israel, married, or here in this case, Irusin is actually betrothed. There was a betrothal between God and the Jewish people. Ki Kadosh Baruch Hu Eras es Yisrael Ayidei Zot Torah. The way Hashem married, He betrothed us, like you did the wedding ring. God gave us the Torah in place of the ring, or through the Torah. That's how we became engaged. Kamosh Nemhar in Deuteronomy 33, verse 4, it's a very famous verse. Torah tziva lana Moshe, Morasha Kehilat Yaakov. Now we're going to take this verse apart a little bit. Right? The law that Moses commanded us is the heritage of the congregation of Yaakov. Torah tziva lana Moshe, Morasha Kehilat Yaakov. So Chazal say in Gemara Brachos on Daf 57, side A, they play around with the word, and they understand the word to understand Morasha, which is heritage, as Me'urasa, as betrothal or engagement, meaning that when God gave, actually we're going to discuss it the way the Kli Yakar brings it down, it's better than the way I can explain it. Ve'teda, you should know, he claims. Since it says, it actually starts off by what it doesn't say. It does not say, L'kehilat Yaakov, with a lamed, right? I'll say the words that it does say, Morasha Kehilat Yaakov. And he says that from the very fact that it doesn't say the words L'kehilat Yaakov, which would imply for the congregation of Jacob, it doesn't say that, but rather what does it say? It says Ma'orasha Kehilat Yaakov, which means, as we explain the word Ma'orasha as Ma'orasa, betrothal, that it was the engagement of the congregation of Yaakov. And it's very clear in the Hebrew. Mashma shekihilat Yaakov hi ma'orasa l'kadosh baruch hu al yedei shenatan laha Torah b'macham tzeva'at kedushin. What is inferred from these words? that it's the engagement of Kehilat Yaakov, the congregation of Yaakov, that it's the congregation of Yaakov that is betrothed to Hashem, to the Holy One, blessed be He, through the giving of the Torah to her, in place of the ring that is normally given in holy matrimony. Kamosh Ne'emar. Now if you turn to Isaiah 54, chapter 54, verse Hey, he only brings down part of the verse. Ki bo olayich osayich, for your maker is your husband. Your maker, your creator, the one who created you, the one who made you. He is your husband. I'll read the rest of the verse. For your maker is your husband, Hashem, master of legions is his name. The Holy One of Israel is your Redeemer. God of all the world will he be called. But we're focusing on the words, Ki ba'olayich osayich, for your husband is God. Hine, it's in the Chazal, we see in the Medrash Tanchuma, Shehim Shilu Zivu Yisrael l'Kadosh Baruch Hu l'Zivu Kala v'Chasen b'Shnei Zmanim. Okay, now we're going to get into that whole Medrash. That there's a comparison or analogy of the unification, the uniting, the coupling of Am Yisrael to God, just like a chassid and kala come together, a bride and groom come together on two occasions, right? What are those two occasions? You have first the betrothal, and then you have the big wedding ceremony and the actual marriage itself. So he begins by discussing now those two separate occasions that we, the Jewish people, engaged and then married Hashem. Ha'echad hu b'shat matan Torah. The first time was at the giving of the Torah. Again, we're going to just use the one word revelation. At the revelation, at the giving of the Torah. And how do we know that? If you look in Exodus chapter 31, verse 18, V'yitein al Moshe kaloto. Okay, the whole verse is not brought here, but I will bring the whole verse. The main part that he's focusing on was when Hashem finished speaking with Moses at Mount Sinai, he gave Moses these tablets of the covenant of the law, the tablets of stone inscribed by the finger of God. So Yitain al Moshe, the word koloto. Now koloto is not spelled with all the vowels and all the letters that it should have been spelled with. This is the way that God commanded Moses to write it. So the word kolot, chaf lamed tav, is chaser kativ. It is missing. Therefore, you can make it, you can darshan out, you can darshan that out, that it's not just finished, but even the word kala, the word for a bride, is spelled that way. Shenimsara haTorah kekala mikushetet va'arba ve'esrim sfarim. That, what are we saying here? That we're saying that Hashem married the Jewish people. It was given over. The Torah was given over like a kala is adorned with 24 books. Okay, we're going to see a verse later on where a kala, or let's say in this case, even Am Yisrael, married Hashem with 24 adjectives describing the ornaments or how beautiful the Jewish people were. And that was the first date. That was what we call the Irusim, the betrothal. Hashenihu, and the second date, beyond Hanuchas Hamishkan. Now you wouldn't have thought of that, but we already got done discussing in the previous part of the Kli Yakar how it was really the Hanuchas Hamizbeach. It was the Hukam Hamishkan. It was the dedication of the altar and the erection of the tabernacle that was on the 1st of Nisan. And it was 30 days later, which is the 1st of Iyar, which is our date, clearly expressed in this, that it took 30 days to make a permanent resident of Hashem in this world, the Tachtonim, and this whole concept that we mirror the 22 angels for each one of the different types of Shechinot that is associated with Hashem. He was surrounded by all these administering angels, and it clearly says in two verses, we saw about 22,000, and then we did the whole cheshbon of 22,000 times 28, and came out with the whole 616,000 plus whatever 9,000 left over. But that was a few days ago this year, and you have to listen to that. But here we're talking about 24 books, and we'll discuss that. Okay, now we're talking about the second day, Hanukkah Mishkan. So now, what was the verse? If you look in Bamidbar, that's Numbers 7, verse 1, it says, V'hi b'yom kalot Moshe lahakim. And it was the day that Moses finished erecting the tabernacle. So the word kalot, now it does have the vav there, but nevertheless, we understand it to mean finished. But again, it has that hint and that remez of a kala. So Perush Rashi, what does Rashi say? Shebiyom shehukam hamishkan nimsru Yisrael HaKadosh Baruch Hu kekala lachasim. Rashi says on that verse that the very day that the Mishkan, the tabernacle, was erected, Israel was delivered into Hashem's hand, so to speak, just as the kala, the bride, is handed over into the hands of the chassan, into the bride, the bridegroom. Shema mina, so what do we hear from this? Shematan Torah's man heirusim. At least we're going to see this cheshbon. We're going to see it according to these dates, and it's going to be very profound. But according to the scenario we just gave over, at the time of Sivan, right? That's the time of the Yerusim. We're coming up to it. Any day now, it's going to be Shavuos, a little over a week. And that was the Yerusim. That was the betrothal. V'yom hukam mishkan uzman hanesuyin, and it wasn't until Nisan, which we'll talk about how the length of time that was and why that's important. But the erecting of the Mishkan was the time of the actual marriage. Now that's fine. That means the first of Nisan. As we quoted the verse before in Isaiah 44:13, it says K'teferes Adam l'shevet bayit. The glory of a man, like the real glory of a man, is when he's able to sit in the house, to dwell in a house. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about the Mishkan. We're talking about Hashem's house, not just Hashem, but we're going to be living there together with Him as husband and wife. Kemuvan min alashon. Now, what was the word we used? Nimsaru. Nimsaru means handed over, delivered. Dahainu, delivered labayit midur echad, to live in one house, to live together, to dwell together. Now, if that all took place, as we said, one was the revelation in Sinai, Shavuos, and the second was the first of Nisan of the second year, the Hukam HaMishkan, the dedication for the altar and the final erection of the tabernacle. Beini, meaning in the meanwhile, between those two dates, Kamo Eser Chadashim, was approximately 10 months. Kamo Shneimar, as it says in Breshis. If we look up the story when Eliezer went and sought out a bride for his master, Abraham's son, Isaac. So he ran into, of course, Suel, Lavan, the whole family over there, and they granted, fine, Rivka can go, but they requested Teshev Hanara Itanu Yamim O Es Asur, that she should let the girl remain 10 days or so with us, and then she can go. So what is this Yamim O Eser? So 10 days, or it really means 10 months, because it says Yamim O Eser. It's not 10 days, but it depends how you read it, but it's Yamim O Eser. So they asked for 10 months, and that was apparently the custom of the time, that the Kala would remain with her family for 10 months between the time of the betrothal and the time of the marriage. Hainu, Asara Chadashim Shenoisnim Libesul Zman Bein Erusim Linesuim Lidkashet Arba Esrim Mine Kishutim Sheniskra B'Yeshaya. Now we're going to see Isaiah in a second. He claims, this is what he's saying, that these 10 months allow for, let's say, a virgin, the time between the betrothal until the marriage, in order to adorn her with at least 24, he claims 24 different types of adornments that are mentioned in Isaiah. So if we look at Isaiah, it's chapter 3, and it's verses 18 through 24. Sorry. It's 3. Isaiah 3. Verses 18. On that day, the Lord will remove the splendor of the shoe bells, the headscarves, the moon-shaped ornaments, the necklaces, the bracelets, the veils, the bonnets, the leg bands, the hair ties, the brooches, the earrings, the rings, the nose rings, the robes, the shawls, the kerchiefs, the pouches, the mirrors, the linens, the turbans, and the clasps. And it will be on that, and it will be that in place of the fragrance, there will be no rot. There will be rot in the place of the belt, a braise in the place of the... Okay, so it goes on and on and on, and we're talking about the opposite of, in other words, in this case, this was not a good situation. This was the opposite of the betrothal, but here you had adornments of 24 types of articles, and they were removed. So we see that there are 24 articles that are normally given, and he goes on to say, Kedei lahadmus. Why are there 24? We know there are 24 books in the Tanakh. Kedei lahadmus zivug shel Yisrael HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chol tzad shel stam zivug. In order to make a comparison or resemble the type of union, of coupling between the Jewish people and Hashem in every way that a regular couple would have behaved. Higbil Kadosh Baruch Hu gam kein zman Yisrael sarva chadashim. So too Hashem also created this limit or this boundary of this space of time between the marriage and between the betrothal and the marriage of 10 months. And how do you see that? Remember we said it was about 10 months. He says, Min Rosh Chodesh Sivan, on Rosh Chodesh Sivan, Shabo nit arsu habatoira shetziva lana Moshe. That's in it meaning on the during the month of Nisan itself, that the Jewish people became betrothed through the Torah, which Hashem commanded to Moses. Ad Rosh Chodesh Sivan. When we say Rosh Chodesh Sivan, we mean the time of the dedication of the altar and the Hukam Mishkan, the erecting of the tabernacle. Shabo Hukam Mishkan v'nishlam hazivug mikol b'kol. That on that day, the first of Nisan, that's when the Mishkan was erected, and that was the completing of the 10 months in every which way for this type of union to consummate. Ki b'zman zeh yitkashtu Yisrael ba'arba v'esrim sfarim. That at this moment, during what we call not just the revelation, but then for the fulfillment, that's when Israel was adorned by these 24 sfarim, which we call the Tanakh. Mitok zeh yuroyin ledur ba'ohel moed midur echad l'shnehem. And because of this, then it's certainly fitting that, remember we talked about the letter ba'ohel in last week, a few days ago, as opposed to me'ohel, that Moses was finally able to enter into the ohel on the first day of Iyar, which is our Parsha. Then it's certainly fitting to dwell together, again, after 30 days of the first of Nisan is the first of Iyar. Again, when we talk Zeh Yuruin Ledur Ba'ohel Moed, certainly would be fitting to dwell in this tabernacle, Midur Echad L'Shneim, where they can both dwell together. Ulefi Shezman Nesoyim Shloshim Yom, and because of this concept that the marriage takes 30 days to really, consummate. Al Kein Nimshach Hazman Ad Echad L'Chodesh Hasheni B'Shana Hashenis. We talked about the chazaka of 30 days, and we talked about if you're renting a place in Chutz La'aretz, you don't put the mezuzah up. It's a real chazaka of a dwelling after 30 days. Therefore, this time, even though we talked about the first of Nisan, was drawn out until the first of Iyar, which is the first day of the second month in that second year. Now, I have to admit, at this point, he's going to give you a different cheshbon from a different angle, but nevertheless, the date is still important. So if you want to count, let's say, differently those 10 months, start with a different verse. V'yitain el Moshe koloto. Now, this verse was, we said, when Moses had finished, when Hashem had finished speaking to Moses. Again, koloto is finished. And when was that? That, we're going to say, is, how do we know? This is in the Revelation. Okay. So, Shenemar b'chodesh Tammuz. See, what happened was, even though the revelation was on Shavuos, but what did Moses come down 40 days later with? He came down 40 days later with the luchot, with those 2 tablets that were, of course, broken at the time. He broke them, but we were involved with the sin of the golden calf. But this is the words that Moses was told by, right? V'yitain al Moshe kalato. Right? Moses had finished speaking with God. God had finished speaking with Moses. So that was Chodesh Tammuz, and that was 40 days after Acher Arba'im Yom Shahori Haluchot. Az Yemechuvan HaMisvah Ser Chodashim Al Chodesh Hasheni Shel Shana Hashenis. So you can still come out that there's going to be 10 months before our date, now our date being the 1st of Iyar, because Tammuz is the 4th month. Remember, there's only 12 months in the year. So either way you cut it, the first time we said it was 10 months because it was from Sivan until Nisan. Here we're telling you now it's from Tammuz until Iyar. And how do we see that? Watch this. That our day that we were just discussing, that the 1st of Iyar was really when the marriage was totally finished and consummated. Because of La Hashem Ketubah. Remember the Medrash we brought in the beginning, we didn't really understand it? That Hashem actually wrote a Ketubah, that's what we call the Torah, and there's a date. Le Demezazman Titrov Halikochos. See, what happens is, when you give a woman a Ketubah, right, in most business deals also, that the written document is attached to property, real estate property. So there's you owe the woman money, and this money is attached to something we'll call, that's why it's called real estate, because it's something real. So if you sold that property in the meantime, there's still a connection to the ketubah, and therefore she should be able to collect it before someone else does. So in this sense, by writing the date, she is getting some security. Remember, before we came back into the land, there were foreigners living in the land of Canaan. But who was it really given to? It was given to the Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, before them. That if, God forbid, which did happen, the Jewish people would have sinned, and then they would end up being exiled from the land. You know what can happen? You go to the UN and you tell them, look, you can take it back. You're able to bring it back and take it from their hands, because you say what? Zman shtarenu kodem. Our contract came way before you ever stepped foot in that land. Now we understand here in our Parashat why it says Be'ohel Moed, that Hashem spoke to God, Hashem spoke to Moses in the tent. As we said, this is the time of the real marriage taking place, where we said the glory of man is to dwell in the house. V'chein izkiru Chazal in Maseches Tainis. Shnei Zmanim Elu talks about these two times. And what are those two times? B'yom Chasanasa. If you look in Shir Shirim, in chapter 3, verse 11, actually I should read the rest of what he's about to say, because not just the day of the wedding, that is Zman Matan Torah. We're going to say that is the time of the revelation. Ubiyom Simchas Libo, and the day of gladdening his heart, Zebinyan Beis HaMikdash. That's the day of the building of the Beis HaMikdash, but at least in our case, it's the tabernacle. And if we remember, Shir Shirim was written by Shlomo Melech, and he was the one who was, Baruch Hashem, instrumental in building the Beis HaMikdash. So let's look in Shir Shirim. I'll tell you what the verse says. In chapter 3, verse 11, go forth and gaze, O daughter, distinguished by loyalty to God, whom peace belongs, adorned with the crown his nation made for him. On this day, his law was given, and he became one with Israel, and the day his heart was gladdened by his tabernacle's consecration. So we see these words, B'yom Chanukto, the day of his wedding, and that was referring to in the verse as the revelation of B'yom Simchas Libo, the day that his heart was gladdened. This is talking about the at least when we think about the time past, time immemorial, we're talking about the first of Nisan, the building of the tabernacle. Ki b'shnei zmanim elu nishlam hazivu, because both of these dates completed that unity, that coupling between the Jewish people and God. And then it mentions Chodesh be'echad l'chodesh, v'hizkir be'echad l'chodesh, and it mentions the first day of that second month, the first day, min hatam shenidbayar, for the very reason we already mentioned. U'kadesh yazivu dovid b'dovid, and in order to make the coupling like a normal, regular bride and groom, very similar the way that the Jewish people married up with Hashem. And he concludes a little bit here, Nemar, Sa'u'es Rosh B'nai Yisrael. Here in our Parsha, we're now taking an accounting, right? Sa'u, we just translate it as a census, but it means to raise up and to count. As it says in the Midrash, in Ha'omer, Kederach Shneimar, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God says, and if you look in Divrei Yamim, that's Chronicles 1, chapter 29, verse 11, it says, I want to actually open this verse up because it's one of the most beautiful verses that we read, and we read it often. That sovereignty is to every leader, but it's also referring to people who are raised up. Kaf netati lechem tzlui rosh. Hashem, raised up the heads. Umanyin zelakan. Why is the Medrash bringing it here? To make it clear that this coupling with Hashem is very similar, and we're here and we're talking about any kind of chassan and kala, the bride and groom coming together. It's a real consummation of a marriage, and I want to, just like we have with Hashem, and I want to bring this pasuk and share because in Chronicles, because it's really very beautiful. It's First Chronicles 29:11. Is. So in Hebrew, we read it like this, and it'll be very familiar to you. L'cha Hashem ha'gedula v'ha'gevura v'ha'tiferes v'ha'netzach v'ha'hod ki kol b'shamayim v'aretz l'cha Hashem ha'mamlacha ha'mitnaseh l'kol l'rosh. Those last three words. We'll read the whole verse now. Yours, Hashem, is the greatness, the strength, the splendor, the triumph, and the glory. Even everything in heaven and earth. Yours, Hashem, is the kingdom and the sovereignty over every leader. So we see this special relationship between the Jews and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Parashat is so deep. Every letter, every nuance, it's like what we do is we're peeling the onions. We're peeling the onion, and there's layer after layer of intensity of the relationship, the glorious relationship that we have. And even if it's Hashem, we should live up to that relationship. We should continue to go from strength to strength. And good Shabbos.
Shabbos. Oh yeah.